what I first wanted to start with was saying that we're going to talk about the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and that is a special education law. But what complicates this so much is like when we're in the middle of an IEP meeting or an IFSP meeting, right? We're talking about a couple of different laws. We're talking about general education laws, we're talking about civil rights laws, we're talking about special education laws, right? So I think right now what we're going to be talking about is a specific part of the IDEA law. But the reason why it's kind of confusing is because there are so many different laws at play. The one that we're going to talk about today is IDE, Part C and Part B. So Part IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Part B was came first, and that's for children who are starting at the age of 3 and going into the age of what, 21, 22.
Through 21.
Um,
Yeah.
oh, through the 21, yeah. And then Part C is birth through the day before their third birthday. So this is IDEA Part B. And the specific part of the law that we're talking about is 300.34 C8, parent counseling and training. So I'm going to read it out loud and then we can talk about it. So, parent counseling and training means assisting parents in understanding the special needs of their child, providing parents with information about child development, and helping parents to acquire the necessary skills that will allow them to support the implementation of their child's IEP or IFSP. So, what does that mean to you?
It means a lot of stuff. Um, it means, right, you have this document, you have the IEP, the individualized educational plan or program for our kiddos, and parents have to be able to continue to support all the things that are in there, at home, at school, those types of things. So it's whatever the parent needs to know or be able to do in order to continue to support that child's progress on their IEP.
Hmm. There was one part of the law too, FAPE, free and appropriate public education. So what is FAPE?
Free and appropriate public education. It just means that we educate all kiddos for free, right? They have the right to a public education, and part of that is our IEP that we develop, and we offer them, parents, families. We present them with an offer of FAPE, and that is just all the things we are legally bound to provide to the child so that they can make progress in light of their circumstances. Yeah.
Did you know that FAPE is actually under the Section 504 Rehabilitation Act of 1973?
Yes, I did. Section 504 is first. Section 504 is the granddaddy of all of this.
So yeah, so again, FAPE, right, is part of our conversation, but FAPE and IDEA are actually different, but they're inside of the same conversation.
Yes.
To complicate things even more, can you talk about Hawaii Chapter 60?
Chapter 60 is basically Hawaii's interpretation of the IDEA. Every state has to follow the federal law. That's the floor, that's the base. You have to do that. States can do more than what IDEA says, but you can't do less than what IDEA says. So if you look at Chapter 60, it's got the IDEA and like, this is what it means here. It tries to explain how we follow the IDEA here.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that Chapter 60 was put together a long time ago. I've only been here for 4 years now, but that it was put together a long time ago, and not everything in Chapter 60 is up to date.
Mm. So what do we do with that information? So if it's not up to date, how do you work with that?
Um, I would ask your the IEP team, because they would know what's not up to date, and they would know how they're functioning uh, inside of that or outside of that, right? Because it's not up to date in Chapter 60, but there's in practice it's up to date. Like in practice, it's happening, but in Chapter 60, it might say something else, and that's because even the federal government has updated or clarified some of their laws. One was I know visual acuity used to be in determining whether a student was a student with visual impairments. And then the US DOE came out with a Dear Colleague letter and said, take those visual acuities out.
Mm,
There's another thing was the least restrictive environment, and the US DOE came out and said it was specifically the least restrictive environment for deaf children. And the US DOE came out with a dear colleague letter, or a letter from the Secretary of State, and said, we're misinterpreting least restrictive environment for deaf kids. This is what it really means. So those types of like clarifications that came after chapter 60 are not in chapter 60 specifically.
mm, got it. Okay, so going back to parent counseling and training, where within the IEP, there's three sections of an IEP, right? The first section is the present levels of performance, present levels of development. The middle section is the goals, the objectives. What are we working on? How are we measuring whether or not this child is achieving the goals that we have set for them? The last part of this part of the IEP and IFSP are supplementary aids and services, and clarification section, those things. So where within an IEP does this lay?
I would actually say there are five sections.
Okay, tell me
I would,
more.
I would, I would say that. I'm trying to think through like what am I, what's in the IEP? So, right, your present levels of academic and functional performance, and then you got your goals and
Hmm.
objectives, right? Um, then you've got your related services section. Then you've got
Hmm.
your supplementary aids and services section. And then there might be more than five sections, but then after that, you clarify what those services are. So clarification of services. And then you'll have a least restrictive environment statement, which just talks about how when the child will and won't be with their gen ed peers. Um, yeah, and then after all that's done, then you talk about like placement. But if you're talking about
Okay, I
main
guess I
sections, I would,
clump those all together. No,
yeah,
those
clump
all
them
get
all
into
together.
one clump.
Clump them all together.
But
Or
so
at least
the parent training and counseling goes into
sup,
supplementary aids and services
yes,
section.
supplementary aids and services section, and that section is all the things that are needed for the child to access their general education. So you'll see
Not not their special education.
the related services are special education type stuff. So when you have like, oh, this child needs services with a teacher of the deaf, it's like, okay, that'll be in the related services if they're doing like direct services with this deaf child. If it's consultation with a teacher, typically it's going to be in the supplementary aids and services because that teacher of the deaf is consulting with the teacher in the classroom so that the deaf child can access that gen ed environment. So that is the difference. Some things get a little sticky, like educational interpreter. It's like, they are a related service, but also they need it to access their gen ed,
Mm,
like they want filter and things like that. So some things could be either or. But
mm,
yeah, so if you had parent training and counseling, it would be in the supplementary aids and services, or SAS as it's called, because they need that to be able to access their stuff. And then you would
right.
further clarify it. You would further clarify it in the clarification of services.
Do you want to specify that? Like what that would look like?
Sure. Let's see. So in the SAS, the supplementary aids and services, it might just say parent training and counseling. And then in the clarification of services, it might say parent training and counseling. Um, Parent will meet with the teacher of the deaf one time a semester to discuss audiograms, which are the shows the hearing levels, right, of the child. It could be parents need to learn American Sign Language, and so again in the SAS it just says parent training and counseling, and then in the clarifications it says something like we'll attend or will be provided with um, three American Sign Language classes. They just clarify what it is they're going to provide to that parent. I will
The
also
what and
say,
the how.
oh, sorry, go ahead. What's that?
Like the what and the how.
Yes,
Like what they're going to work on, how they're going to work on it. Does it
yes.
say who's going to work on it? Like somebody will teach them, they will go in a group, they will get it online.
Not necessarily, but I mean, it would probably be good practice if it was really, really detailed. But I do know too that making it super duper detailed sometimes pigeonholes you into doing that specific thing, which
Hmm.
can be a good or a bad thing, depending, because sometimes what you're pigeonholed into is not. Maybe something better comes along, and you're like, "Oh, we want to do that, but we can't because it says this on the IEP."
Mm-mm-mm. So, I'm gonna go over a couple of things that can be, and then maybe you can add to it too. So, like understanding the specific and specialized needs of a child who is deaf or hard of hearing. So it could be, like you said, understanding the audiogram, understanding like auditory skill development, language acquisition, child development, and how like that auditory access or language access impacts them daily at home and in school. Do you have anything more to add to like understanding the specific needs of deaf and hard of hearing kids?
Yeah, I think the what we you know need to understand too is that the fatigue that comes from all of the sensory differences, right?
Hmm.
And the effect of not having full like access to incidental learning, understanding even what incidental learning is and how it impacts everybody, and then being able to understand how much incidental learning your child is accessing. And then you can kind of see, oh, wow, I need to actually provide all this background, all
Mm,
this background information or these experiences. And how do I provide those experiences? Because if you have a deaf child and a child with typical hearing, then you're going to probably need to provide different types, not different types of experiences, but uh, you're going to have to do different things in order for those two to even get the same type of experience out of it.
right. So I think to tie it again, this is teaching parents the skills that they need to support the implementation of the IEP. So helping parents learn a skill to support. So they're taking this information, they're going to implement it at home, and it's to support the IEP, meaning, sorry, the IEP. So like learning American Sign Language, how do you use an FM system, how do you manage
Mm-hmm.
hearing aids, and that sort of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to acquire that knowledge and those skills helps the child to help the child and also the DOE to implement that IEP.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All the things, and there's not a finite list of things, right? Because there's so many things that parents may need to know. And again, it's training and counseling. So it's not like counseling, um, like a social worker or somebody like that is going to come in and help them, or counseling them with grief and whatnot. It's really about the educational part of it. You're counseling them on how to deal with maybe listening fatigue when your child is tired and they're throwing their hearing aids. Like, how can you deal with that type of counseling? Yeah, so and it depends on what that family. If it depends on what the child needs, right? If the child needs X and the family doesn't know how to support X or provide X, now they need X so that they can support.
Right. That kind of that kind of like leads me to talk about how IDA Part C. So families are included in the goals, and I individualized family goals, right, for Part C. So what is interesting is with Part B in school, the goals are going to be written for the child, but the parents are requiring this so that the child can learn those goals. The difference between IEPs and IFSPs is that the families can be written into the goals in IFSPs. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's still underneath this portion of the law where it's still parent training and education, but they're actually written into the goals in IFSPs.
Yeah, that's a difference that I think is hard sometimes for parents to understand, that transition from part C to part B is a transition of focus, you know?
Mm,
So when you get to school level, there really is a focus on the child and what does the child need, and then as a byproduct of that, maybe the parents need something too.
hmm. Yeah, a lot of parents report like I feel like I was just dropped. Like we transitioned from part C to part B and we just got dropped and there was nothing. But it's like let's think creatively and really understand the law, and that will help us to continue being an active participant in this process.
Yeah.
And then determining the determination of what that looks like is made on an individual basis, right? For that child, for that family. And in the clarification section you were talking about, it could be individual, it could be in a group, it could be in person, it could be virtual, it could be printed materials, it could be videos, it could be subscriptions.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
do we
And
miss anything?
it could be that it's not specified whether it's virtual, group, individual. And I would that's you get leeway with that, right? So you can have maybe these five families need to understand what an audiogram is, and the different parts of an audiogram or whatever. So let's get these five families together, and maybe, in the case of Hawaii, they're on different islands. So it makes sense to do a virtual thing where we're just providing them with the knowledge of this is what an audiogram is. So that might not be an individual thing, but maybe one family needs to know how their specific child's, because they have a different type of hearing level or whatnot. Like they need to be able to understand their specific child's audiogram and how it affects what's happening at home. Then that might be an individualized or like a family based conversation.
So what would you suggest? Like, let's say a family has us on their child's IEP and they are receiving services, but it's not working for their family. What do you offer as a suggestion for those families to do? How does that conversation look like with the school if they want to go back and say like, this isn't really working for us? Like what you have provided isn't we're missing the mark and we're not getting the support that we need.
Yeah, I mean, parents can call an IEP meeting at any time, but you can also ask for like just a meeting with that's not necessarily an IEP meeting, but like a troubleshooting type meeting, like a student focused team meeting. Like let's troubleshoot this. I guess it depends on what the issue is you think is going on. I would probably see, can somebody come watch, or can I come here? If like some families get like an online subscription or whatever, maybe it's like, can we sit down and you watch me access it and you can see how we're doing it? Do you have suggestions for us to practice, how we can practice these things?
Mm.
Can we include a touch point with you once a month? Can we come together and we can talk about what I learned? It's supposed to be a team. It's a team conversation, right? The IEP is, so you've decided on this is what the parent needs and this is how we're going to offer it. But if it's not working, the parent always has to, you can always go back, parent or anybody else on the IEP team, right, can be like, hey, we need to come together and talk about this again. I think that would be a positive of writing the clarification of services, not so pigeonholed, because
Mm.
it gives you that flexibility to change things around, right? If you get all the support with this online subscription and it's still not working, maybe it's that, okay, we need the online subscription, but we do also need a in-person ASL class once a semester or once a quarter or something like that, to be able to come together with other families, so we can practice our skills. Or
Yeah.
maybe we need you to provide us with information about where in the community we can practice, right? Tell us about community events, keep us posted on that. And then we can go to those and we can practice. So it should be a conversation between the people who are on that IEP team.
Yeah. And parents can offer ideas. It doesn't have to just be
Yes.
the DOE coming with the ideas to the table.
Yes.
All right. Did we miss anything?
Um, I don't think so. Well, I guess we did kind of cover the fact that it's like not necessarily, I mean, we didn't say it in so many words though, that like it's not necessarily you ask for it, you get it. But I mean, that's the whole thing
Mm.
with IEP, is that it is a discussion, right? Everybody's putting their 2 cents in, and everybody um, has or should have the child's best interest. Some people know what the child needs to know and be able to do educationally. Some people know what the child can currently do, outside of school, and all that has to come together, right? So, but just because you want it doesn't mean it's going to happen like that, because, free and appropriate public education looks different for everyone. And it just depends on what the team decides is needed in order to have that FAPE.